can't say I'm an enormous fan of visual novels. I like books, so I like stories, but visual novels have always been a so-so for me. I'm not quite sure why. But I thought I would try this one out, and whilst it wasn't particularly eye-opening, I won't say it was a decision I regretted. The art was nice, both background and character art, although the styles were a little out of sync. The characters were more digital art, anime kind of style, whilst the backgrounds were sort of oil painting kind of style. I'm not really an artist, but whether this was meant to mean something or whether the creators just had very different art styles, I have no idea. Either way, it was something that, whilst it was a little strange and sort of disconnected, I was willing to overlook. The music was fitting to the atmosphere for a large proportion of it, though at some points it would simply cut out and leave me with nothing but text. It was, I think, supposed to indicate a neutral level of occurrence, with nothing but thought going in, or leading up to some sort of suspenseful situation. Some parts that worked, others not so much. The loops were also very noticeable in the audio, but again, it wasn't too distracting. The story itself is the main content of the novel. Nearly all of it was perfectly written in terms of spelling and grammar. I did notice a few mistakes, but I really do have an eye for that kind of thing, and I tend to notice almost instantly, even if I'm just scanning. But the writing standard was impressive, very descriptive, with a good display of vocabulary and literary techniques. That made for easy reading and a good ability to visualise scenarios. God, I sound like an English teacher. I noticed though in the credits that the story was written by a group of people, and I'm not sure if they split the dialogue between some of them, but there was a little inconsistency with the style. The beginning and end seemed to be written in a sort of poetic form, with repetition of phrases and the like, though with a little unevenness in the rhyming, whilst the main block was consistent descriptive prose and dialogue. This could have been for a more wistful effect, but it seemed a little jolty in transition in practice. But after those points, I managed to drop into the story quite easily as the writing levelled off. Now, the storyline itself took a few erratic turns. What I thought it was focusing on as the main story ended abruptly, and then it took a couple of different routes to an ending that I felt could have happened earlier, but it was like they tried to extend the story in a way. In that extension, there was a play on the circular format of the story, with events returning to what they'd been in the beginning, with recycled dialogue identical to the start to round it all off. But I feel it was a bit of a strange way to make that circle happen. It's hard to go into more detail due to not wanting to reveal too much of the story, but I thought the story would end when I was about half an hour in, just because it would have been a very impactful ending. The actual ending had its own degree of impact, but not so much as it would have had if the story had ended where I thought it was going to. And as I said, after the strange route the story took from there, it kind of washed out a little bit over the time. But it was still emotionally moving. I mean, I think it was. It's hard to move me. I'm not going to hold my callousness against you. Despite that, the writers did a very good job with the descriptiveness and the philosophical thoughts of the characters, as well as keeping stable perspective. The in-depth musings of the main character shortened the distance of us with them, despite us not knowing their name or really much about them. It tackled the idea of mortality and immortality quite well, and I feel that actually my view of the character's decisions as strange could be down to the fact that, were I in his shoes, I would not have made the same choices. Just goes to show that it did provoke some thought after all. I think the game overall could do with a bit more polish. The backgrounds were a little limited for the story, and the text and people were quite static. The music could blend a little more, but I think all in all the game is about telling a story, and, well, it did tell a story. Quite well, in fact, and to a mature standard. It lasted about an hour and 40 minutes, I would estimate, so it's not just a quick dump of material. And I'm quite a fast reader too, so it could take longer. You can save the game, so there's no worries about that. And the extra content of music and backgrounds that were included for the player to see were a nice touch. And you can set the text to run on auto if you want to, so you don't have to click. But I'm just impatient, so I did. But it was a nice little tale to take up some time, and I'd probably give it a 5.5 out of 10.